In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build a multi-AI agent newsletter system that you're going to be able to produce ready to use newsletters just like this one on the screen right now. We're going to be able to generate everything about this newsletter, from the titling and the styling, the colors, the images, the naturalness of the text is everything that we can literally generate using multiple sets of agents in n8n. You can see here that we have some images that it's populating as well. It's formatting all of the content as any email newsletter would. We've got the big titles up here. We've got a bunch of subcontext as well. And we can see we've got additional images in here. We've got links as well to some of the content that I was talking about in the actual newsletter. But we're going to be able to generate a newsletter exactly like this. And all we need to do is send one message to our AI agent about the topic, and it is going to handle literally everything else to create an exact newsletter. Here are some other examples. We've got this Meta Smart Glasses newsletter right here. You can see at the top, it's added some images, it's added the title, it's added content for the newsletter as well. Obviously, you can have this formatted literally however you would like. Once again, here's another newsletter that I was able to generate. We can see here that we've got the image. We can see that we've got the text here, which is all written quite nicely. It's formatted great with the titles, and we've got a bunch of just subtext information as well. Pretty much exactly what you would expect from a newsletter like this. Once again, this is very flexible. You can literally tell it to design it however you want, and it's going to be able to do that. The way that this works is that I'm able to send the agent a message about a topic that I'm interested in. It is then going to take that topic and expand on it. It is going to actually do some research on that topic. It's then going to obviously write the email for us as well. It's also going to create a title, an actual subject line for that email, before throwing it into a Gmail module, which then sends it off in an email. So to show you in action, we can see in the bottom left here with the n8n actual chat workflow, I can just send it a message and it is going to email me the full-on newsletter with the topic that I was talking about. So I could say, tell me the latest news on AI companies in the past week. I can go ahead and send it off to our agent, and it is going to start to process everything it requires. And here we have it. I've just gotten back this email directly from the n8n agent, and it has just given me a full-on industry report about the latest in AI companies. And we can see here, this is everything that it's done. So we've got a nice title at the top, AI Industry Insider. It sort of named it itself. It's given us OpenAI and NVIDIA announced a landmark deal. We've got some text here to obviously reinforce what it's talking about. We've got an image that it's thrown in here as well. Why does this matter? Blah, 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 whatever. Typical newsletter, typical sort of email that you'd get. Nice little image here of these guys, NVIDIA and OpenAI's team. Once more text here, some buttons at the bottom, unsubscribe button, whatever. Awesome. So this is exactly what we'd expect it to do. It did it perfectly. And there you go. So starting from scratch here on n8n, the first thing that we're going to need is the chat to trigger module. So if you're not familiar with n8n before, or you're not quite sure how to get started with it, what we're going to be using is a chat trigger just to initiate our workflow. And so we can get this by clicking at the top right corner on the plus button, and we can just type chat. You'll see chat trigger pops up at the top here. We're just going to be using this to initiate our workflow. You can also integrate something like WhatsApp, something like Telegram, if that is easier for you to actually use this system. But for the purpose of demonstrating it, I'm just going to be using the n8n chat feature. So all that this module does is that it allows us to get the open chat button at the bottom here. And this allows us to actually send messages off to our workflow natively within n8n. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus button once again, and I'm going to go ahead and click into this AI section. This AI section is going to give us access to the AI agent. So this is going to be a multi-AI agent system, which just means that we're going to have multiple different agents acting independently of each other to do different tasks, which I'll run through exactly what that will be. And so this is going to be a very important module. So once you've clicked into the AI agent module, this is what will pop up on your screen. You can just hit the escape button and exit out of that. And we can take this module and drag it around as is. First thing that we're going to do is actually take this right here. We can actually hold down on this and start to drag around, and we can connect that chat module directly to our agent. So now our messages that we type are going to get sent to our AI agent. And if we go ahead and click into our AI agent, you're going to see the connected chat trigger node. So automatically the source for the content that is going to be sent to our agent is automatically connected to that chat trigger that I connected to it. So there's actually nothing you have to do extra to make this work. Once that's done, there's a couple things that we need to do. So the first thing is that I'm going to add a chat model to our agent. The reason that we're adding a chat model to our agent is so that we're kind of giving it a brain at the moment. It can't process anything. This is a required thing. We can't not do this. And this is just our AI model. So I'm sure you're familiar with all the different AI models. We're just giving it a brain to use in order to process our request. Doesn't matter which one you choose, obviously depends on your task. In our case, this will be generating an email. So we do want to have a bit more of a model that's able to handle bigger context. So I'm going to scroll down all the way to the bottom of this list and I'm going to click on Open Router Chat Model. So Open Router is not a model itself, although it's sort of a library that gives us access to all of the different AI models. The big benefit here is that we can kind of just use one API key and get access to all of the different AI models rather than just selecting OpenAI and getting the one OpenAI key and having to manage all of that individually. We can just use one Open Router API key, and you can see here, we have now got access to all of these different models. So all of the new models, all of the later models, we've got access to literally everything. It's super easy. That's why I like using it. Once that's done, our agent is pretty much ready to go as is. So this is an agent that we can talk to and talk back and forth with, and it's going to be connected to, in this case, we've selected OpenAI's GPT 4.1 mini model. I will swap this for a more advanced model when we are going to be doing the actual email generation, because this isn't the best model for sort of long context generation. But anyways, there's other videos out there on different models for different tasks. This is a fully capable agent, so we can now talk to it and chat with it. And we're going to start to build on top of this. Before I do anything, what I will do is actually just click on the AI agent and just hit my spacebar. Once I do that, it's going to allow me to actually rename the agent. In this case, I'm going to call this the research agent. So this particular AI agent, we're going to be using for research. So if we give it the task of looking up the latest AI companies or the latest news in AI, this is going to be our agent that is going to do that task. So jumping back into this agent, I'm going to double click once again. Now, what we need to do is give our agent a little bit of an instruction set. So we need to guide it, we need to shape it to do exactly what we're looking for, which in our case is going to be doing a little bit of research. So right now it has no instruction set. It's just a plain AI model. Pretty much ChatGPT is what we've got at the moment, but we want to add some instructions. And so we can do that by clicking add option at the bottom here, and we can go to system message. This is going to allow us to exactly control how our agent acts. So I am going to replace the current system message right here, and I am going to copy paste a new prompt into this, and I'm going to run through exactly what this prompt includes. So I've just pasted this in. So what we have is a prompt specifically for a research assistant. So at the top here, I've added in a role. We can see here, I sort of just labeled it so it understands that it is the role. If you've done any prompt engineering before for AI agents, you'll know how important it is to have headings. So we've added a heading here for the role. I've said you are a research assistant. You will take the user's search request and you must use the Perplexity tool to look up the latest news regarding their inquiry. Only use the Perplexity tool if you need to research the latest news. In your output, you must include 2 relevant image URLs from the Perplexity tool. So that might seem a little bit confusing as to why I've added that information into there. So I'm going to leave this prompt and come back to it in just a minute so you understand what Perplexity is. So if you are familiar with how these large language models work, they are trained on information. They don't actually access the internet. It's not like a Google search. So it is very likely, or more than likely, that these LLMs are not going to be trained on the latest information. So for a build like this, which relies on the latest news in order to obviously generate a newsletter, we need the latest information. And if we just talk to this LLM, this AI model, it is not going to give us the latest information. And so what we can do to sort of get around this is actually use Perplexity. So if you aren't familiar with Perplexity, it's sort of a combination of Google search combined with these AI models, where we give it a query and it is not only going to use the large language model to look up a response, it's going to do a bunch of search engine searching as well. And so it's kind of going to combine the two, the relevant brand new sources combined with the large language model processing as well, kind of gets combined together and it produces an output which is much more up to date. So what we can do is go to the tool function right here. So we're going to add a tool by clicking the plus button. That's going to open up our tools. I'm going to search for Perplexity, and there's a Perplexity tool, which is awesome. And I can just click into that. The first thing you'll have to do, of course, is add your Perplexity credentials. You can do that by clicking up here and click create new credential. You'll only need an API key. That's all you need to connect your account. Pretty much just go to Perplexity, sign up for an account. There's an API section and you can pretty much just copy your API key and throw it into here. You may need to add some credits to your Perplexity account if you don't have the pro version, but otherwise it's pretty simple and straightforward to get set up. There's also documentation on here if you need help actually finding that key, and there's other videos on YouTube on how to get an API key for Perplexity. But otherwise, I am going to make a few settings changes to this right here. So one thing that I will do is I'm going to change the tool description right here. So the tool description is pretty much what's used to determine which tool should be ran for what reason. And so our AI agent essentially is using this to determine what this tool is, why I should use it, when I should use it. And so it is good to set this manually yourself if you do have lots of tools. In our case, it'll probably use it anytime or every time anyway, but we can also add a description, something like you must use this tool, Perplexity, for all of your research. So being specific about research, that's what we're using it for, just to make sure that it does it every time. Underneath this, we have the model. So this is what's being used to process the requests. If I click into the model, you'll see they've got a few different AI models for Perplexity. There's a few different models there. You can have a look at Perplexity's documentation to have a look at when you should use which models and for why. Otherwise, for this, I'm just going to use the default model, which is Sonar. Underneath this, we have the text. So the text is essentially what we're going to be sending off to Perplexity to do our research on. So this is something that our AI agent is going to have to decide itself as to what it's going to be researching. If I am looking for the latest in AI, then our AI agent needs to properly populate this field in order to properly research what is the latest on AI. And so really cool thing about n8n is that we can actually use and populate like an AI field. So if you look at this button right here, let the model define this parameter. So if I click on this, pretty much the AI model, the AI agent itself is going to populate that model. We literally don't have to do anything. We don't have to fill anything out. It is going to populate that all by itself. So that's all done now. Our agent has complete access to doing proper research, doing recent research on Perplexity. There is a few other settings that I will recommend making as well. If we go all the way to the bottom here and click add option, there's two things that I would recommend adding. One is going to be returning images. So if we are going to be doing a newsletter or building whatever with this, I would recommend adding some images. So I can just turn this on very easily with a toggle. So essentially what will happen is that when Perplexity is doing its research, it's also going to just send us back some images related to that research from whatever it finds. As I showed earlier, I prompted our agent to actually look at those images, to look and store those image URLs for the next set of agents in our flow. So this is really important if you want images to be in the email. Otherwise, the last step for the Perplexity tool, we're going to be adding in a search recency filter. So really important. If we are building a newsletter, we want it to be recent. So search recency filter, we're pretty much just filtering when the articles, when the information that it's looking at is most recent too. So we can just make this monthly, hourly, daily, or weekly. I can just click on week, and this is just going to give us a bunch of content from the last week and just restrict it to that. So that's really good if we are building something like a newsletter. If you've made it this far, well done. We've now completed the first agent. So we are fully capable now of being able to send a message, do some research about a topic, and then move on from there. And once again, if you are a bit confused or you don't want to build this entire thing out yourself, I will have this entire template within my free school community, which is linked in the description. So the next thing that we need to do is add our next agent. So if I just click on this plus button right here, this is not a tool. This is just the next step in our workflow. We're just going to add in a brand new AI agent. So I'm just going to add the next agent in there. You'll see that it populates and looks exactly like the previous one. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this agent is, once again, I'm going to hit the spacebar button and I'm going to rename this the email writing agent. And so this agent is, as I said, is going to be used for email writing. So we're going to take our topic that we've just researched and got all the images for. We're going to send this to our next agent, which is specifically built for taking the content and sort of formatting it specifically for the email. So this one is going to be a little bit simpler on the automation side, and more of the complexity comes from the prompt itself. So all that we need to do is just click on the chat model. If you want to make it super easy, you can actually just drag this over and connect it to the other chat model, and that will work exactly the same way. I do like to make it so that it's a little bit more organized, and I just add the open router once again, and I just add it in here. Once you've done that, that's literally it for the automation side of it. All of the complexity is going to come down to the prompt. So jumping into this agent, there's a couple of things that we need to do before building out our prompt. So the first thing is that at the top here, it says that the source for the prompt, the actual user message, is coming from the chat trigger node. So at the moment, that's not going to be true. We're actually going to be sending in the content, the research, to our email agent. And so in order to fix this, we just have to click on this right here and click define below. That's going to allow us to prompt the agent using some variables from previous steps in the workflow. So all that we need to do is just click out of this and run this research agent. And we can also do that just by going down to the bottom left and just sending a message. So I might just say test, see if that does anything, and that will just process our research agent to do something. We can jump into the email writing agent and we can take the output and throw it into the prompt here. So now it's connected. It's not connected to the initial node. It's connected to the second node, which is that other AI agent. The next thing that we're going to do is jump down to add an option, and we're just going to be clicking on system message. And this is where all of the actual brain power is going to be housed. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and paste in a prompt, and I'm just going to run through everything about that prompt and why I've done it. So I'm going to paste this in right here. Scrolling to the top, we have the role. So once again, like I said, in how we prompt our AI agents, we like to create sections, specifically using Markdown formatting. So you can see here that we've got this Markdown hashtag. What this is used for to essentially communicate this heading as a real heading. So if we added this to a Word document as Markdown, you would see it as a larger heading in bold, as opposed to just being traditional text. So anyways, just helps with actual prompt engineering. I've actually styled this around Tim Ferriss. If you're not familiar with him, he's got a newsletter, quite a popular one. And so I've just styled this writer about him. And so it's going to write it in his style. The goal of this is just to make it a little bit more human-like, a little less robotic. And that's what you've seen in some of the examples that I've showcased. Obviously, you can style this however you like. You can tell it to write it in any way that you want it to. But in this case, this is who I've added. You will receive information regarding the latest news in a random topic, and your role is to review this news and turn it into an email newsletter for an audience. This newsletter is a casual newsletter. Think of it like speaking to a friend. This is not a commercial or formal email. It's a friendly newsletter to a small audience, updating them on the topic at hand. Next, I've got an output section, which says you will output this newsletter in complete HTML format with modern email newsletter styling. The email should have the styling similar to Apple. You must use the images provided in this email. Try to include the images in the actual email and make it flow with the content. Please follow the example HTML closely. And then lastly, I've said do not output anything other than the HTML, no notes or text. So for our last heading in the prompt here, HTML output example, what we're going to add after this is essentially a big HTML example of a really nice looking proper newsletter that it can reference for its own styling. So what I did and what I would recommend doing is going to a website just like this. This is called Be Free. They have free HTML email templates. I literally found this on the top of a Google search. You can find anything else. Obviously, any HTML template would work for this. I just scrolled through this and found a template that looked kind of cool. And then I just copied the HTML from it. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in right beneath it. So I'm going to go paste that right there. This is pretty extensive. It's a pretty big amount of HTML code, but the AI, as long as you've got a good enough model that can process this amount of context, should have no issues understanding it. It is going to be able to reference this in terms of how it wants to style it. It's going to understand exactly how different elements are used and styles and fonts and colors and blocks and whatever. It's going to be able to look at all of that and use it and reference it in your emails. Once you've got that prompt built out, that is it for the email writing agent. That is good to go. It's able to produce HTML that we are going to be able to then send off to a tool like Gmail. But before we do that, we do have one sort of conditioning step that we need to add in, which is the HTML module. So if I click at the plus button in the top right and I type HTML, we can see here, we've got this work with HTML module. So if I click into that and then click generate HTML template, this is something that we need to use in order to just format our HTML template to be used in an email just a bit better. Once you've added the module on the page here, double click into the module and you're going to see a bunch of HTML added into this particular module. We're just going to go ahead and get rid of all of this. We don't need any of that. And I'm going to add in a new HTML condition, which is essentially going to be looking at our HTML that the AI has just generated. And we're just going to be formatting it just a little bit. So what this is going to do is it is going to replace some of the backticks and this particular HTML text, which AI always or pretty much always generates when creating HTML. For whatever reason, this is not something that we can use when sending it over an email, or it's just not needed to be sent in an email. And it just kind of ruins the email and adds text that we don't need. And so this is just a really good conditional way to remove it and make sure that our emails that it generates are good to use every time. So you can copy this code snippet from the template within the school community. Otherwise, just type it out exactly like this. This is referencing the output from the step right before it. So if I just drag this and connect it to this, we can click into here. If I actually ran this module, we'd be able to actually reference it. But JSON.output is going to be the output of the previous agent. And we're literally just replacing this part of the text with nothing and then replacing this part with nothing. And that fixes it all up. Once that's done, we've only got one more agent that we need to build in order to have this system as a fully functioning email newsletter writer. So I'm going to click on the plus button once again. I'm going to click into AI and I'm going to click AI agent. I'm going to rename this the title writing agent. This agent is going to be specifically used for writing our titles and our subject lines specifically for the email. So just like the last agent, the power in this is once again going to be the prompt, of course. And so we can just add our chat model. Once again, I can type open router. I can add in the same model as before, and then we can go ahead and build our prompt. And once again, just not forgetting to actually swap over the source for the prompt to be the previous module. So we can do this, I can click out of it, and then I can quickly just run this module. So I can hit execute step. This is going to actually take a little bit of time because it is generating the HTML. Once that is done, it is going to give us the HTML in which I can reference to be used in the title. The title is going to be generated by looking at the actual email itself and then determining what the title should be. So there we have it. That has just ran. If I click into this agent, you'll see a big block of HTML that is just generated, which is awesome. What we need to do then is run the HTML module just to make sure that we actually can the proper variable. So clicking out of this once again, I can click into the title writing agent, click into here, drag and drop that right into there, and that is good to go. So now this entire system is all connected and communicating with each other. So I'm going to go ahead and just paste in this prompt right here, and I'm going to run through everything about it. So we've got the role, which is the title. Once again, you are an expert email newsletter subject line writer. You will output a single engaging email subject line that is relevant to the email you've been provided with. Make it short and concise, yet engaging for people to click. Obviously, this is a very basic prompt. You would want to add to this and build on top of this to make it more aligned with something that you would actually want to publish. This is by no means a production ready system, but you should be able to use this to get a good understanding as to what a production ready system would look like and how you would structure it. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and send a message off to our agent here just to see that everything works and everything generates in the sequence. So I'm just going to tell it to give me the latest news on AI smart glasses. And then we have it. If I just click into our agent right here, you'll see meet the future AI smart glasses you can wear today. So there's the title that it was able to generate. Clearly it worked. It went from the start to the end, and that did exactly what we were expecting it to do. And now for the last step, we're just going to connect our Gmail module. So if I just click into the next step here, I'll type out Gmail. I can click into this and we can click send a message. So we've done that. We're going to get all of these settings right here. Everything that you would need in order to send an email. It's pretty straightforward. Who we're sending it to, what the subject is, and what the actual email content will be. So we can fill this out pretty easily. I'm just going to put my email into here just so I can receive it. For the subject line, this is going to be coming from the title writing agent. For the actual message, that's going to come from the email writing agent, and we can throw that into the message here. Make sure the email type is set to HTML, as obviously we're using HTML code. And that's literally it. What we can do is jump into the add option at the bottom here, append n8n attribution. We can click on this and just turn that off. All that's doing is just turning off like a watermark that says n8n on every email. Obviously, we don't want that on every one of our emails. If you do, you can turn it on, but whatever, you can turn it off. And that is good to go. And what we can do is click into this and click execute step, and I can see if I get an email. And there we have it. This email just came through. AI smart glasses, the future is now. We've got the title at the top here, meet the future, AI smart glasses you can wear today. And we've got a nice image at the top here, super high quality. And we've got the rest of the actual email content in here as well. So that worked once again. So I'm just going to give it a final run through. It's actually pretty fun to play around with and give it random topics. I'm going to tell it, give me the latest news on golf. So let's see what happens. I don't know anything about golf, so this is going to be pretty helpful. This is going to put together, do some research, write up the email, and then send it to me, and let's see what happens. And here we have it. Golf Weekly Scoop has come through. Ryder Cup information about that, some information about some other stuff in here as well. Doesn't look like it actually added in any images into this particular email for whatever reason. So this looks like it didn't find any images. Or maybe we didn't prompt it good enough to add the image, but otherwise looks like it formatted it decent enough. Obviously you can play around with this, add different templates, but yeah, otherwise looking pretty good. If you found this video helpful, I definitely recommend checking this video out right here, where I built an n8n AI contract generator, which would fill out an entire contract all for me, so I didn't have to do anything manually.